I'm Daniel Kellogg. I'm the president of Young Concert Artists, and I'm delighted to have Maxim Lando, brilliant young pianist, for our interview today. Before we start, I just want to say a brief word about Young Concert Artists. We are a wonderful organization that's been around 60 years, and our mission is to discover and launch extraordinary young musical careers, to find people who are at the beginning of major performing careers, composition careers, chamber ensembles, and then get them started. So today we're talking with Maxim. Maxim, you came on with Young Concert Artists, I'm going to guess the auditions in 2018, is that correct?
Absolutely.
I just got a note that says it looks like it's frozen, but from our end, it's okay. So we're going to carry on and hope that things are okay on that end. That's great. So you came on in 2018, and then we had the chance of presenting you in debut concerts last fall in both New York at Carnegie Zankel Hall and also in Washington at the Terrace Theater at the Kennedy Center. And it's a delight to talk with you today. So the first thing I want to ask is, how old are you, Maxim?
I'm 17.
You're 17, and if I remember correctly, you turned 17 only a few weeks before these two debut concerts. Is that correct?
That's right, which just made them all the more special and unforgettable.
Well, that's fantastic. Oh, I just got a note saying that we're not frozen anymore. We're all good.
Thank God.
So there's so many things I want to talk to you about, but first let's start with some basics. We're technically having what we're calling a living room conversation, although it does not look at all like you were in a living room. It looks like you're in a concert space. Where are you, Maxim?
I am in my parents' music school out in Long Island, New York. And that's the best thing about being quarantined here is we have so much space to do any activity you want.
So you live technically in an apartment above a music school, is that correct?
I do right on top. It's the best commute for my parents that they could ever ask for.
And how many pianos then are in this building?
God, there's a lot. There's a handful of decent uprights, and we got a fair share of grand pianos, including my favorite right behind me.
What is that behind you?
It's I don't actually remember the year it was in, but it's Steinway that has a great story. My teacher had it in, he was trying to put it in his apartment in New York, and it would not fit when he was moving from Boston to New York. And he gave it to us. So we got it's the most incredible sound to the piano, probably out of any I've ever played on. I can't describe how it works, but whenever I hear it being played, there's something so magical about the tone, the sound, and this bass that you hammer it out and it just explodes. It goes dynamite whenever you're hearing it.
What size is it? Is that a 7-foot or a 9-foot?
The 9-foot, biggest one.
You know, it's one of the things that's so difficult about being a pianist is you don't get to take an instrument on the road with you. What is it like constantly having to adapt to new instruments?
It sucks.
Direct answer. What's the process like? How do you sit down at a piano you've never played before and become comfortable enough to play a whole concert?
I mean, it's the best thing about performing that you get what you get and you don't get upset. So, I've played on some absolutely god awful pianos in some places, and it's the fun part is making it work. Hopefully, that you luckily you get a time to warm up on it before the concert, and you have enough chance to talk with the technician, talk with the tuner, and fool around with it yourself. And sometimes it can affect your playing for the better. You can experiment on it and try out different voicings and see what works and see what doesn't work. And other times you just get blessed with a great piano, which is best case scenario.
Well, there are some fine pianos out there, and one of the nice things is that you're not carrying an instrument onto an airplane, so there's at least one upside.
That's the best part.
So going back to this, so your parents run a music school out in Long Island, so you were born into a musical family. So tell us, how did you come to play piano?
Well, my dad is a clarinetist, my mom's a pianist. They run the school that we didn't always live on top of it, but where we lived before was within walking distance. So I was always found hanging around from when I was a baby. I would hang around in my parents' lessons. We had one of the teachers who was the sweetest and took me when I was like 3.5 or 4. We played some musical games together and formed a mother-like bond. And it's either you love it or you hate it when your parents are musicians. There's really no middle ground with all of my friends that I've asked. But yeah.
How old were you? Your earliest memories of playing the piano or taking it seriously, how old was that?
I mean, I would say that starting seriously, it was maybe 5, 6, when I really knew that, this is what I want to do.
You mean even at that age, you had clarity is that you wanted to do this for the rest of your life?
I did. Well, I think probably the biggest turning point is that when I was, I'm trying to remember how old I was. I think maybe 5 or 6. I played at my great grandma's funeral. It was in Cape Cod, and I was supposed to play for her, but she passed away right before I did the concert. So I did it in honor of her, and it was the most moving concert that I could ever think of doing. I think I even sung the alphabet there. It was.
You remember what you played?
Oh my God, I'm trying to think. I think I played Dr. Gratis and Parnassum by Debussy.
The Debussy.
Yeah, it was one of my favorite pieces, and I kept with it for a bunch of years then. But just the thrill of even performing, a little. I think it probably wasn't a long recital. The thrill of performing and the thrill of playing in front of a real audience and getting an applause afterwards, it gets you so pumped up.
Wow, I have so many follow-up questions, but the one that comes to mind is talk about it. What is the most exciting part of performing live? Is it the audience?
For me, it is the audience. And, I've actually asked that to a lot of my friends and a lot of concert presenters who, invite me to play. I always want to know, because a lot of them are musicians and a lot of them are pianists. And they all have a different opinion on who they play the music for. And why, they do music. A lot of them say they do it for the music itself, as respect to the composers. And a lot of them do it because they love the pieces. But for me, it's always been about, the audience, because I just get such a thrill out of it.
How would you describe the energy? Well, first question is, I imagine you feel a live energy that's different for each audience. And so first question is, how would you describe that? And then how does the energy in the room, maybe it changes over the course of a concert, how does that affect you on stage?
Well, definitely different audiences have a different effect. I would say that the Zankel Hall audience for the Zankel debut had a huge effect. It's in one of the greatest halls in the world. It was a fantastic piano and a energy-packed crowd. And it was a crazy program, which just boosts up your energy, and it makes you go all around it.
All right, you put it out there. It was indeed a big, bold program. Can you tell us what the program was? This was back, if I remember correctly, in November at Carnegie Zankel Hall, and it was the Young Concert Artist debut concert of Maxim. What was the program?
Well, the program was starting out with Kapustin's Takatina, this powerhouse piece that I just discovered it a little bit before the debut. It's a burst of energy, and I fell in love with it. I actually heard Kapustin playing it online. There's one recording of him doing it, and it's incredible. It's a great piece. I went to the Beethoven's 109 Sonata afterwards, which is I was very nervous to choose that one because my teacher is notorious for picking at the late Beethoven sonatas.
Maxim, quick question. Who is your teacher?
My teacher is Hung Kwan Chen, and he teaches at Juilliard and also at Yale.
Fantastic. All right, so you did the Beethoven. What did you do after the Beethoven?
After the Beethoven, I did Scriabin's Prelude. I believe it was Opus 11, and it was another one of those pieces that you don't expect to run into. And I heard it. I heard Yuja Wang playing it. Moment I heard it, it kind of melted for me. It's one of those ultra schmaltzy, romantic, sweet, and just a bundle of emotions whenever I'm hearing it and playing it. And kind of the goal was to have the next, I think, 4 pieces after the Beethoven kind of be a set. And I'm Russian. My dad's Russian. So I thought, a great way to, respect the heritage and also Russian music is among some of my favorite. I thought that putting together a series of Russian composers and shorter Russian pieces, almost like a medley, makes sense. And it's also really cool to see how the pieces go from one to another.
So that's the first half. What did you do on the second half?
Second half was the Liszt's Transcendental Etudes.
Hey, how many etudes are there?
There are 12.
And how long does this take?
It's a good question. It ranges. I recorded myself doing it in an hour, and I recorded myself doing it in an hour and 10 minutes. And I'm still trying to figure out where the 10 minutes went by. I never skipped anything. I played through all of it. I'm trying to figure out where it all went.
In case people don't understand, if you don't know the etudes, this is a group of virtuosic pieces by one of the most virtuosic composers for the piano. And as a 17-year-old pianist, you presented the entire set as the second half to the concert. And it was riveting. It was a full room. There was a great energy in the room, and it was quite an event. And everybody before the concert would look at the program and go, my goodness, that is quite a spectacular thing. And then the same thing was said after the concert. So how did it feel? Was that the first time you had played that set to such an audience?
It was, absolutely. And it was a good feeling because it was almost like a victory. I fought with every single person that I knew to play those pieces. And everyone tried, to talk it out. And, it wasn't so much playing the pieces at this age that was the problem. It was, more the length of it. And, how does it fit on a recital that also has a Beethoven sonata and this Kapustin and the Russian medley? And it seems really overwhelming.
It's big, yeah.
Absolutely. But it is such a great piece. It's almost its own concert, in itself. There can easily be a concert just made from one etude to the last. It's such a complete package. And I love it, when people play the entire set. I also know that a lot of people break it up and they do some etudes and they divide it. But it's such a different feeling when it's performed as a whole. You can enjoy it differently. There's a very special feeling.
Well, it's good that we're talking about this because you are doing a special broadcast concert on Saturday. I believe it's at 4 p.m. and it's going to be featured at the Gilmour Festival's website. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And what will you be playing then?
I'll be playing the Liszt Transcendental Etude.
Okay, that's fantastic. So one thing is we would invite everybody that gets to see this interview to tune in to watch Maxim broadcast this live on Saturday, the entire set. So now you're doing this in what's essentially late April, and I heard you play this set back in November, and I think I even heard a preview in late October. So how many times do you think you've played the Liszt Transcendental Etudes as a whole set at this point?
It's been quite a few. It's
half a dozen, something like that?
I would say so. I mean, I've done it in some smaller venues. I've done it in some places outside of New York. Each time you do it, it completely changes. It changes from the way that I hear the piece, and it changes with the actual playing. Every piece is, of course, supposed to evolve, but I think the etudes more than any other piece completely changes.
Well, that was one question that you sort of answered. Is how has the piece changed for you over the course of that time and however many months have passed since then? But a second question is, I've talked to you a few times about the Liszt Transcendental Etudes. And one time you made an analogy, which I loved. You said, it's a little bit like a great journey. And you referenced Lord of the Rings, which is one of the greatest journeys put into a book form. And I actually read that when I was a teenage boy, and I found it riveting and exciting. So could you say something about that? How is this a journey to play all 12 of these pieces together?
Well, first of all, Lord of the Rings is, I think, my favorite trilogy of all times. I am the massive fan of it. I think I'm one step below going to an actual convention and dressing up as one of them.
Well, there's still time for that after the quarantine is over.
Exactly. No, but the 12 etudes, first of all, they have everything in them. Liszt quotes so many different composers in them. Not only composers, but he quotes I think there's a Pink Panther theme in one of them.
He's quoting the Pink Panther in advance.
Exactly. I think he foresaw the Pink Panther theme, and he was a fortune teller. No, but it's such a journey. It's you started. It's almost like I always loved playing Schumann's Carnival, and with both of the pieces, so there's an introduction. Liszt starts it out with the first etude. It's a grand introduction. It sets up the stage. It's almost like a theater. And he takes you past that into a Paganini, full of flair and full of show-off technique and full of, flittering notes cascading down. Each one has its own personality and each one has its own character to it. But when you play it from beginning to end, of course, there's the obvious, some of the etudes just lead into another. But more than that, I think, when I'm watching The Lord of the Rings, since you brought it up, or reading the books, I have a clear picture of Frodo. He's going after the ring. He has to go. He meets up with this fellowship. They all have this character development. They go through the enemies. They have, this stage, and then they save the day and they throw the ring in. It's the same thing with the Liszt, that you're going from one stage to another. It's almost like levels, that you're journeying through, and you can't just do the levels individually because it doesn't make sense then. You're not going to have a sense of accomplishment. You got to go from the beginning to the end and see how it plays out. In the end, you get to the final boss. You you hope that you live to tell the tale.
So, well, that's great, and I love that. I really love that, and I get the whole idea of journey. And we're going to come back to that later because I have a follow-up question for people watching. For a fine musician, and you're an extraordinary musician, when you prepare something and you bring it on stage, you know it with an intimacy that's hard to describe to anybody that's not a musician. I mean, you not only do you know every note, you play it memorized, all of that. You probably dream about it. You probably think about it coming out of the shower, having dinner. You live and breathe this music. So do you discover new things when you're in the middle of a performance because you're on that journey and it's hard to replicate that journey outside of a performance? I mean, what is it like to be in the middle of a performance playing such a big piece?
It's a good feeling. It's a feeling that you have the control and you have, the ability, hopefully, to change the piece any way that your mind wants you to do it. Before you're on the stage, you can get influenced by different thoughts. People can tell you different things. But when you step on that stage, it's 100% you all the way. No one can stop you. No one can tell you what to do. You have the freedom to do anything that you want to do. You can stop the show and you can, run onto the audience if you want. No, that's not a good idea, but it's that power that is so amazing to have. And your mind, of course, wanders when you're performing. You have different thoughts. You might be thinking about the audience if they're making some noise, but it's part of that energy. A lot of people say that you're supposed to have an empty bladder when you go out to perform. See, I disagree. I think you should have a full bladder. Well, because then you are on the edge of your seat. You are, you don't have the reserve. You need to have the reserve. You need to, have points where you calm down. Otherwise, it's just a mess. But it's that excitement of being on the edge of your seat and just having the control, but knowing that you can do anything, that freedom.
You know, you just gave me a detail and a level of openness which is new even for me. So thanks. I have one last question about Liszt, and then I want to go on to some other topics. If Liszt was here right now, and you were going to talk to him or ask him a question or share something that you'd always wanted to say to a great figure like this, what would it be?
I would want to know what was going in his mind when he wrote the Liszt Sonata. And it's different than the Transcendentals, but you mentioned before that, you know, when you go out of the shower, you think about music, and when you dream, you think about music. That happens to me too, including in the shower. And you know, one of my biggest obsessions now has been the Liszt Sonata. And when I get obsessed with something, I listen to it over and over again, and I make my parents listen to it over and over again, and I make my friends listen to it. You know, and I'm stuck on it. And the Liszt Sonata has been this next obsession. You know, it's a piece that my teacher probably, you know, that combined with also the Hammerklavier, that is my teacher's signature piece. You know, that is one of his signature pieces that I remember he gave, I think, 3-hour talk on just the opening notes. But I would ask Liszt what was going through his mind when he was writing that.
Okay.
You know, I would want to know everything. It's the most studied piece, I think, in all of the music rep, and it's so fascinating to me.
Well, you know, I will have to ask you the question after you've performed it a few times, and then I'll ask the question and say, now, what do you think Liszt would say? So we'll hold that for some future conversation.
Absolutely.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask a bit about your quarantine. So we know that you are at home with your parents and that you have a music school beneath you. So you actually have 9-foot pianos and mini concert halls. What are you doing? What are you doing that is not musical these days?
Well, I am, what am I doing? That's a good question. Catching up on my homework, which is not fun.
You're still in high school, is that correct?
I'm still in high school. I have, I think, like 3 more months until I finally graduate. They're going to be long months, but...
Oh, I was just looking at the comments. No questions yet, but lots of people are saying they're excited about your concert on Saturday. So I'll just mention again, that's Saturday at 4 p.m. Look for it at the Gilmour Keyboard. Is it Gilmour Keyboard Festival or Gilmour Festival website?
I think Gilmour Keyboard Festival.
Okay, great. Sorry, going back. So, okay, you're finishing homework. Now, is it just homework and music? Are you reading anything? Do you get on video games? Are you playing board
honestly,
games?
One of my favorite things that I've been doing, and I know my dad is watching this upstairs as we speak, so he's going to be very happy to hear this. We've been playing ping pong. We have a table in the basement, and it's one of both of our favorite hobbies to do. Well, my dad's been painting the entire basement, so it's been a giant project of, you know, moving things and trying to get a lot of work done. But when we're taking breaks, we play ping pong, and you know, we're very, very competitive with each other. And we used to have other people come into the school and also play with us, a lot of the dads and a lot of the students as well. But my dad and I have a very big rivalry, so you know, we get very competitive with that.
Well, that begs a question. Out of 10 games, how many do you win?
You know, it depends on the day. I got to be honest with you. I lost today, right before the interview.
All right.
I won yesterday. You know, it's up and down. Yeah, it's not because I'm worse than him.
And are you guys serious? Do you have like great spins on your serves and everything?
Oh yeah, no, we take the game very seriously. I had a coach who came in. He's a student of he's the dad of two of the students at the school, and he constantly not only gives me tips, but he helps me out. He's helped me with the game more than anyone. He's the most knowledgeable person about ping pong. So you know, we have coaches, we have fancy rackets, we got the whole setup.
You know, it would surprise me if I don't think there's anything you do that you don't take seriously and sort of go all the way with it, which actually leads me directly to the next question, which is, I know you have a very unusual habit. I was surprised and delighted to learn about it. You like to do long walks, but they're unusual walks. Can you tell us about this?
They are. I would do one very soon, but I'm too afraid to go outside.
Right.
No, I got into this, like maybe 3 4 years ago. It was actually right before a competition.
Okay.
And I thought that if I did this walk, I took a good friend of mine. I thought that, if we did this walk, it would increase my chances to win the competition. And that was not true. I lost. I got knocked out in the first round.
Okay.
So, that did not have a good effect. But I did enjoy myself. It became a routine. I walk from my house. We live on the northern side of Long Island. And I walk to the South Shore. So we live on the island part, the Long Island Sound part. I walk to the ocean. So, it's a long walk. It's, I think, took me 12 hours, depends on the time.
How many miles?
30, roughly
30 miles.
30. Yeah, it's very long, and it's not for everyone. I've dragged almost every one of my friends, and every single one of them has had very bad injuries. They have they haven't spoken to me for a long time after I took them on it.
How many times have you done this?
Oh God, maybe 10, 11, 12. Not too many, but over 3 years, it's once every couple months. Whenever my parents allow me to take it, and they don't yell at me for wanting to go. But
how do you get home?
They drive me. Thank God I don't need to walk back. I make it to the beach, and I get my limo to pick me up, my dad's car. No, but you were talking, we mentioned Lord of the Rings. It's the same exact mentality that you go on an adventure from beginning to end. It's a chance to think about music. It's a chance to unwind. You get to see beautiful nature. A lot of it's highways, which isn't so beautiful. But, one of the biggest questions that my parents included always ask me is, they say, why walk to, the beach? Why walk on highways? Why not, get picked up, drive somewhere, and then walk, where it's nice? Why walk to where it's nice? And, the whole thing is that you gotta go through the pain. You gotta go through, Frodo went through all that pain. You gotta go through it all the way to get, to the reward.
Wow. I guess I would assume you're suggesting that the South Shore is sort of where all evil resides and where you can save the world from apocalyptic endings.
Sure. You throw a rock in the water, and that's your save.
Okay. All right. I think that's amazing. Someday you may investigate long distance backpacking, because the journey can happen in so many different places, and you might find that as you expand beyond Long Island, there's quite an amazing world out there.
Absolutely.
Which of course So you're talking a little bit about your parents, and I know that we had talked a while ago about, not in this conversation, but another one, about how you wanted to play certain repertoire from a young age, and you even used to argue with your parents about when they thought you were ready to play something like the Liszt Transcendental Etudes. What is it like in your family, you being a very serious, dedicated musician that's just barely 17 and having two parents that are professional musicians?
Well, I'm very fortunate to have them as musicians, because I feel like, almost more than anyone else, they're the most relatable to me. They were in my shoes. They know exactly what I'm going through. They know what it's like, to get overwhelmed with a piece of music. And they've lived with me for enough time to know that I'm very obsessive. I have a very obsessive personality. I'm that way with everything. So they know that when I obsess over a piece like the Liszt Transcendental Etudes, there's absolutely no way that they can possibly talk me out of doing it. I think that my teachers feel the same way. That when I get an idea of a piece, it's going to be a battle to the very end to try and convince me not to do it. And usually I win, fortunately, because I never give out. But it's a really great feeling to have parents that are musicians, and that they're always going to support you. They know they're always going to follow you. They're always going to give you advice, and they're going to be honest with you. It's so important that they're honest and truthful, because a lot of people aren't. So, to have people like my teachers, like my parents, that are, completely direct with me, it's, I think, more important than anything.
There's no question that the life of a dedicated classical musician, especially somebody that really does what they do on stage, it's such a focus and a demanding enterprise that it takes every part of your being. And to have your closest loved ones have an in-depth understanding of that, I think can be very helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Your parents are lovely, and I say hello to them, and they're so dedicated and so supportive. Although I love it that they have ongoing arguments with you about repertoire and all kinds of things.
All the time. I
It
wouldn't have it
means,
any other way.
well, it means that you've grown up in an environment where you're always challenged, and I think
Absolutely.
that's invigorating.
You have to be. The moment that you're not truthful with yourself, and this is something actually really important that I've been discovering. I'm so thankful for I'm not thankful at all about the virus. I'm not thankful at all about being stuck and not doing concerts. But I'm so thankful to have this downtime to go back and to work on the music, because I felt like for such a long time I was never honest with myself. I feel like I was always lying to myself when I was practicing. And that I would not, when I knew that something wasn't wrong, that something wasn't right with my playing, or that I wasn't hearing it in the way that I wanted to play it, I wouldn't go back and I wouldn't fix it. But now I'm finally starting to do that. And it is so great to be truthful and honest with yourself.
So you're saying that's coming about because of the time and the space.
It is. I don't know why it's coming about, but I think, the having the time to, sit back and to really focus and practice without having to move around and go from one place to another. It has a lot of its benefits.
I'm going to put on my own teacher hat for a second and say, that's amazing. But now the challenge is you have to figure out how you can capture that and carry that on into the future, because
Absolutely.
there will be a day when, hopefully we're all looking forward to it, when you're on the road again, and you might be on the road 100 concerts a year or more. How do you capture that very focused, honest practice and self-discovery? So I love hearing you talk about it.
You got to be obviously prepared for all of it, and I think you need to have a very specific picture in mind for what you want with each piece, and what you want, to say with your music. And I think just it's the tough part is going about and actually doing it. It's all talk until you do it. But it's a fun process of trying to figure out how you go about it. My teacher is an absolute master at that, where he knows exactly the tiniest details, how it affects the whole picture, and how you really go about painting a picture in your mind and making it happen on the stage. And it's something I love to study. It's something I love to figure out how to do. And it's something I really hope I can, transfer in all the performances.
So I want to invite anyone watching, of course this is live, to send in some questions, and they'll be texted to me. But before we go to questions, I have one last question. And we prepared sort of a YouTube clip that we're going to post the clip in the comments section so people can go check it out later. And I believe it's you playing the Prokofiev Second Piano Concerto live. So the question is very open-ended. How do you decide repertoire, and what makes a piece of music that you want to play, and what makes it something to play at that moment?
Well, it's, it can come from a number of things. I usually love to listen to a recording. And I love that YouTube does that recommended, thing where it automatically goes to another video. I love that. So, you get swept away to a video of a great artist playing it. For example, I always knew the Liszt Sonata, but when I heard it was Andre Watts playing it from years ago, that's what made me fall in love with the piece. I never, I always loved it before, but I never obsessed over it until I listened to that recording. With the Transcendental Etudes, it was a recording of Berezovsky that made me absolutely go crazy over it. And from even as far back as I can remember, when I was, incredibly young, listening to clarinet music, I would listen to the Nielsen Concerto. My dad had a recording playing in the car. I would listen to it over and over again. I would obsess over that. It's such a great thing to listen to a great recording and to, then reflect on it and start working on it yourself. So I think a number of the rep that I choose comes from listening to great recordings, and I just fall in love with the piece.
Okay, so we will put up a link to a YouTube video of you playing the Prokofiev Second Piano Concerto, and I think where it's linked right to the second movement. Is that correct, or third movement?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm going to start asking you some questions that have come in from people watching. And first one, sort of a practical question. You have this live stream concert coming up on Friday. Are you handling the tech, or is somebody showing up at your residence helping with the tech?
So I'm handling the tech. This is a very new step for me. I have never known anything about recording equipments. I've never known anything about how to produce it. We would have someone show up, but we're all scared right now. So, we're doing it ourselves. Actually, right behind me, I have, where's the mic? It's somewhere here. I don't know if you can see it. I don't know where it is, but it's somewhere behind me. We have a little setup. I started out, I'm really fortunate because my grandpa has been incredibly interested in recordings and setting up recording equipments. And he's been spending hours looking up every single device you can think of. And my teacher knows everything about recording equipments as well. And I've been lucky enough to get some of his equipment. So I'm really excited to start putting out some more videos, as the quarantine progresses.
Yeah, there's no question. It's a time for every performer to learn how to use the internet, record, make good audio recordings. I should mention about the Gilmour, we glossed over this, but you are working with Gilmour because you received a Gilmour Young Artist Award this year, which is a huge honor. So congratulations.
Great. Thank you, Ed. I'm really honored, and it was the best phone call of my life. They call you and it's almost like you're winning the lottery. They tell you that you get it and you think it's a spam call, and then you find out what it is, and it was so sweet.
Well, that's just fantastic. All right, I have a question from somebody on the inside. They know that there's a special connection to Billy Joel, and we wonder if you could tell us that.
Absolutely. Well, so, up until also like maybe 2 years ago, I was completely closed off from all other music aside from classical. I had zero interest. In fact, I hated listening to other music. And, my parents, we would be going on long car rides over to Boston where my family is. And on the way there, we would listen to Billy Joel. They would put on some Billy Joel recordings, and I would never, be interested in listening to them. I would always, it would always be, and you cannot handle pressure, and I would be saying, I can't handle the pressure right now. I want to just sleep. After the car ride, we came back to the house, and I don't remember how it happened, but I think it was for a birthday present the following year. My parents said, we got you tickets to go with your friends to a Billy Joel concert in Madison Square Garden. I went there and I didn't know what to expect. I knew all of his music. I always loved his music. I think that he is probably one of the greatest singer-songwriters. But I went to the concert and I had no idea the impact it would have on me until I heard it. It almost made me burst out into tears. He plays for 2 hours in Madison Square Garden, which I think is, probably the world's greatest arena. It is completely sold out. There's not one single, it's amazing to see how the audience folds in. You get there early and there's no one there. And in a matter of 30 seconds, people zoom in and there's, 20,000 people all in 30 seconds. And it's an emotional roller coaster. Talk about adventures. That guy knows how to, put on a real adventure. And he has some fantastic music. It's completely, he has so many different genres. He has so many different classes. It completely motivated me to completely branch out of the classical world and get influence with rock and roll, with pop, with jazz, with, so many different things.
That falls into another question that just came to me, which is you played a very unusual encore for your Young Concert Artist debut back in the fall. What did you play?
I played Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven. I did a little short rendition of it.
It was very much your transcription, right?
It was, yeah. I mean, it's funny because I was going to do it. I think I was planning to work on it for actually a Gilmour concert. It's going to be for a Gilmour preview event before the debuts. And I was planning on it, and my parents said, no, you don't want to put this on. You haven't even written it yet. It's all just talk. And I said, no, trust me. If you don't put it on the program, then I'm never going to get around to do it. you got to be motivated. It's a great song. It's, I think it's such a beautiful message behind it. And it's fun to do, arrangements.
I remember in the room, there was sort of this surprise. I'm not sure if it was a gasp or an exhale, but many people recognized it. Nobody was expecting it. And it was such a contrast that it became a real delight, part of the program.
Oh, thank you.
Just beautiful. All right, I have another question. How do you keep all of the music in your mind as you add different pieces over the years, especially if there are pieces you do not like?
Well, I've been lucky because I have a good memory. That's one of my strong suits. It's not so much that I can sight read well, but it's more that, once I play a piece, it pretty much starts being memorized very quickly, which is good and bad. It's a benefit because it's great to have, more than one pieces in your rep at a time and to, kind of toss them out. And it's a bad thing because if you learn a piece too quickly and if you memorize it too quickly, you skip over a lot of the details. And I found a lot of times that I learn a piece quickly and I learn it wrong. And I take it in for a lesson and my teacher rips it apart because we both know that there are so many things wrong with it. So sometimes it's better to take your time with it. But, also with pieces that I don't like, I haven't actually found that I don't like that many pieces. It's, I guess the challenge for me is modern pieces. It's some new contemporary ones. I'm bad with getting myself out there with it, and I'm trying to get a lot better with it, and I'm really trying to start playing a lot more of it. And I found that there's some really great stuff. And it's as far as the memorizing goes, I don't know. For me, it's just come easily to get the pieces, get more than one piece at a time. And also listening to a recording and knowing the piece before helps a lot with that.
Well, which is also a problem with new pieces. There may not be a recording.
Right.
A question that I love to talk to young artists about is just what does artistic growth look like, for you individually? And as a 17-year-old, when you talk about how you don't play as much newer repertoire, I smile because there's a lifetime to grow into that and discover that. What does growth look like for you right now? What are the things you're thinking about as who you are as a pianist and how that will evolve and change?
I mean, I'm hoping to obviously play as many concerts as I can, but the growth I think for me is in the music. It's that number one, obviously you have a more mature sense of the piece after studying it for a lifetime, but it's you always find new secrets about your own playing that you never knew. With the Transcendental Etudes, I felt like I was playing it, but I didn't feel like it was a full concert in its sense. But I feel like when I'm doing it now, I feel more and more that it's becoming a full concert. I mean, I think that's part of the growth. In another 10 years, I don't know what the piece is gonna be like. Hopefully it's gonna be something. It's gonna have a completely new meaning for you. That's the beauty of music, that your perception of it changes over time. I have so many old pieces that I love to revisit now and play in completely different ways. And I love that growth. It's a really heart felt kind of growth.
One of the things that is really great about knowing you, and it folds into what the mission of Young Concert Artists is to discover people and help them when they're right on the verge of, they've acquired an extraordinary level of performance and musicianship, and they're ready for a major career. And then we try to help them and see where they go. You're 17. I can't wait to hear you in 10 years, in 20 years. I mean, hopefully you'll be playing concerts and sharing music for decades.
I got my fingers crossed.
It's riveting to see what you've done and how extraordinary you are, and where you're going to go. And it's exactly what Young Concert Artists, that's what we want to do. We want to find brilliant young people who are not necessarily known and are ready to do just fantastic big things. And I invite anybody to learn a little bit about us. You can always check out our website, www.yca.org. And we invite support and people joining our mailing list and learning about us. Maxim, I hope that everybody will tune in on Saturday. I hope that right after we're done talking, they'll check out the video of you playing the Prokofiev Second Piano Concerto. You're an exuberant extroverted piano player. I feel like your personality, the way you talk, matches some of what I know about your playing. But let's say you had to pick a few words to describe your playing to somebody that has never heard you play. What would you say?
Controversial.
Controversial? Okay. What else?
You know, I always just put my heart on the line. You know, I have that approach with everything. You know, I've the same thing applies when I'm in a relationship. You know, that I put my heart on the line, and you know, it's all Maxim. There's no other part of it. You know, you get what you get. But it's, you know, I don't know. I mean, there's, you know, it's just that I love to play. You know, I love to, you know, I think having a personality is the most important thing for a musician. And I don't know if I have that, but I hope so. And I know that I just love to play, and I feel music so strongly, and I feel the pieces so strongly, that a lot of times it upsets a lot of people, you know, and it upsets me too when I, you know, can't get it the way that I want to get it. But I know, I mean, I would just say persistent, you know, persistent and stubborn as heck. So that's my personality for life and my personality in music.
You know, you are a very authentic person, and I think it's one of your superpowers that even at a young age, you're just very comfortable with who you are. And the fact that you have a perspective, you're very charismatic. It might be a turnoff to some people who think that a certain piece is supposed to go a certain way, but it's compelling. It's you 100%. And I've seen that people are just riveted, you know, by your playing. And it's just fantastic. How can people find out about you and follow you online?
Well, I have a website, maximlando.com. Facebook, Maxim Lando. Pretty much everything's just Maxim Lando. I have an Instagram. That's been one of the new things that, thanks to Michelle from YCA, I've been finally starting to post more on it. And yes, it is so important, and it's you know, especially in this time of quarantine, because, you know, who knows when we're going to be doing concerts again in real life. You know, I'm really excited because I have a lot of projects coming up. I've got, you know, I finally gotten this recording system almost completely set up, and I'm ready to start, you know, recording pieces and recording some songs, which I've really been getting into and been spending a lot of my time doing. So it's a new territory, but it's you know, it's a lot of fun for me.
Will you be singing?
I will be. It's that's going to be unexpected for me as well. Because
I can't wait to hear it. I mean, I love it. At age 17, you already have an appetite for all this new territory that you want to break into.
Well, it's, you know, that came from being inspired with Billy Joel and other singers. You know, I feel like it's, for a while, I've been trying to connect classical music and other kinds of music. And I feel like, you know, a good way to do it is just to get down and dirty and start doing the other music. And, you know, I love to come up with different tunes. I love to, lyrics has been, you know, a struggle, but I love to come up with, you know, personal lyrics that mean stuff to me. And as far as voice goes, I'm going to need a lot of lessons and a lot of training.
Well, there's a few songwriters that got by not on the quality of their voice. But,
That's true. That's true.
We're going to wrap it up in a second. I want to remind people that you're doing a live broadcast from, I believe, this very room on Saturday, 4 p.m. Look for it on the Gilmour website, and you'll be doing the Transcendental Etudes. I have one last question, and we will let this be the end of our interview. Of course, I want to remind people to check out your videos, performance videos, learn about young concert artists. We all welcome that. In your YCA auditions, it was very dramatic, I understand. I was not there, but your glasses came off. Is that correct?
Yes, they did. They not only the glasses, but I had my sleeves. I was wearing a long shirt, and I had them rolled up. Actually, I think Michelle helped me out with that. She rolled them up because otherwise, I'm the most neurotic person when it comes to everything. You know, I have all of these weird routines, and one of them is if my sleeves are rolled down. With certain fabrics, I get really funny with it. I get, you know, strange, and so it helped to roll it up. So it was a weird look, you know. It was the glasses came off at the end, the sleeves were rolled up. You know, it's I don't know. It felt like I was, hanging out and playing with my friends, and they came rolling off. So,
Well, I know that footage is online. You can find it at the Young Concert Artists YouTube page. I haven't seen it. I'll have to go back and look. But, you also have the eccentricities of a great performer. So that's great. It is always a delight to talk with you. It's always fascinating.
Thank you. This was so much fun. It was the highlight of my quarantine.
Well, hopefully there's great things coming up. Please give my best to your parents, and I look forward to your performance on Saturday.
Well, thank you.
Good to talk to you, Maxime.
Great to talk to you.
All right. Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you.